Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. I read a lot of books in June, and I have audiobooks to thank for that. This month, I thought I would categorize my reading wrap-up by genre because the favorite books that I read this month were both space operas. The first was an audiobook. It was Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is the second book in that trilogy. Children of Time is the first one. The premise of it was so interesting and the execution was just fascinating. Even though there were large time hops, I was able to really maintain interest in the Children of Time, which I've done a more in-depth review on. Humanity is embarking to terraform worlds for colonization. They reach a prime world, they call it Kern's world, after the head of that terraforming project. This terraforming group arrives finally at the world after periods in and out of cold sleep and set about trying to set up the planet for humanity. What Dr. Kern hasn't told anyone is that she has engineered a virus. It's like an evolutionary virus, and she plans to unleash this virus on the planet as well as a group of monkeys to speed up their evolution so that it will be her world. She'll put herself in cold sleep, and eventually humanity, once they're technologically advanced on that planet, will contact her and she will be like their god. But the plan does not go as expected. The monkeys don't make it down to the planet. The virus does, and it starts speeding up the evolution of spiders. From that point forward, we're following the gaps in time of these spiders and how they are rising to a civilization on this world, which you would think would be kind of weird and like, what character are you following over that much time? But it works, I promise. And also the arrival of another follow-up group of humans who are setting out towards Kern's world and want to live on it. But when they arrive, the society of these spiders and these arriving humans kind of come into conflict. I really loved that book. I was very excited for book 2. I really wanted to see more of the humanity and the spiders. And originally I was put off because book 2 doesn't open with that story, but you got to give it a chance because that gets pulled in a very fascinating way. So book 2 actually opens with a different group of terraformers setting out to a different planet at about the same time or a little after Dr. Kern started her stuff on Kern's world. So it's focused on a couple of other planets in a system, but it all gets wrapped together. And listening to the audiobook, I just didn't want to stop reading it. The narrator did an awesome job, and I was really engaged with the audio version opposed to reading it. So I really liked Children of Ruin, and I'm excited and looking forward to reading the last book in the trilogy, Children of Memory, which is already out. The trilogy is complete. The next space opera I read is a new release, The Blighted Stars, which I would grab and hold up and show you the cover, but I already mailed it off to my dad because I really want him to read it because I really, really enjoyed it. This is the first book in another series. It has a little bit of leaning towards horror and some of the technological aspects that we're dealing with, but it's basically a survival story. The galaxy is ruled by these very powerful houses that each kind of have a technological niche. God, there's a lot of really cool stuff with the world building as far as how consciousnesses are downloaded and printed onto fresh bodies, but I'll not get into all of that. Basically, this terraforming endeavor has started some sort of blight, and there's a rebellion faction that believes the Mercator House is causing it, and then the heir to the Mercator House, who is desperate to prove that his family isn't involved with this blight at all. He's a geologist, and he winds up on this mission where they crash land on a planet. And lo and behold, the blight is there. That makes no sense because they hadn't started the terraforming yet. So this heir to the Mercator House, very privileged individual, but very scholarly and down to earth. Like, he doesn't really have much to do with the day-to-day rulings and decisions by his severe father who heads the house, is trying to survive on this planet. But what he doesn't know is that a member of the team and his bodyguard has been infiltrated by the rebellion faction, and in fact the very person who made the allegation against his family in the first place and who has plenty of reason to hate him. But now they and the small group of soldiers that survive with them have to survive on this planet and also try to figure out what's going on, why is the blight already there, and how it interplays with their technology. That's such a surface level assessment, but it was another gripping story with very interesting world building. The two main characters I love. They were both very competent, good at their jobs, just trying to do the best they can. The interpersonal conflict and relationships that build I really liked, and that's another series I'm going to be continuing. So highly recommend both of those. The rest of the books that I read this month were all different genres of romance leaning. Some historical, kind of spooky, others contemporary. I did a reading vlog where I read Secret Service of Tea and Treason, The Last Heir to Blackwood Library, and Love Theoretically. I think 2 of the 3 books weren't overly remarkable. My favorite was Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. She focuses on main characters who are involved with STEM. This one is about a theoretical physicist who needs to make a little bit more money than being an adjunct professor will pay. She has signed up on this app where she will be a fake girlfriend, and her favorite client's older brother turns out to be an experimental physicist who heads the physics institute of her dream job, and they come to conflict from there. There's a lot more detail in that reading vlog. I would really recommend Love Theoretically. I think it was my favorite of the 3 Ali Hazelwoods that I've read. And then as far as these 2 books, I want to check out more by each of the authors, India Holton and Hester Fox. The last 2 books that I want to talk about this month, Silence for the Dead by Simone St. James. I'm really wanting to explore more of Simone St. James's backlog because I am a Susanna Kearsley fan. Susanna Kearsley always has a historical storyline, a romance, and there's always some sort of like supernatural type element that will connect the contemporary story with the historical story. Simone St. James, the ones I've read so far, are basically the historical version of that. So in Silence for the Dead, a young woman right after the end of World War I, she's really desperate, down on her luck, and so she pretends to be a nurse and goes to this very remote convalescence house for soldiers who are shell-shocked by the Great War, and things are not right at this house. So this is gothic. There's haunting, there's a mysterious background, what happened to the previous owners of the house, why did they abandon it? So there's this mystery element with the interactions that she's having with the soldiers here. I want to read more Simone St. James. And then the last one I want to talk about is Happy Place by Emily Henry. It's her most recent contemporary romance, and this one was really emotional, really hit me in the feels. I actually had to stop reading at parts because it was just making me sad, because it's this couple that they were engaged and they've broken up, but they haven't told their friends group yet they both wind up on this friends vacation, and they're trying to pretend for the sake of their friends group that they're still together. But the breakup was only a couple months ago, so they're both kind of still grappling with that and trying to reconcile what they really feel about each other. Yes, really heavy hitting. I enjoyed reading it. I liked the dynamics that were set up, the setting. I liked the main character. She's this surgical resident and she's struggling with what really makes her happy. The book is called Happy Place because the main character is constantly reflecting on her happy place and wanting to get back to her happy place and how that changes. And I really appreciated this one, but parts of it did make me really sad. So it's not happy-go-lucky type contemporary romance for sure, but I do think it's worth reading. It's one of my top Emily Henrys. I don't know if it surpasses Beach Reads, but it's in the upper tier of the books that I've read by her. And I think that's a good place to cut this one. I read a couple of other ones that weren't especially noteworthy this month, and I'm in the middle of some thicker fantasy. I just haven't finished the book yet, so I'll talk about that in next month's reading wrap up. Let me know what your favorite book was that you read this month. And if you're interested or read any of the ones that I talked about, I really, really want you to, if you like science fiction, you should check out The Blighted Stars, especially if you like a little bit kind of horror, but not that's not the main focus, but yeah. I'm happy with the books I read this month. Even though they weren't all favorites, I discovered new authors that I want to keep reading. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks. Bye.